guys know Safety Dave? So this, if there's one guy in Kansas City that has the word safety in his name, it's Safety Dave. And I've been on more job sites where I run into this guy, and so he said, I said, Dave, you ever do presentations on safety, estimating safety costs? He did one over at Garden Barbecue, and I said, Dave, I got a bigger stage for you this time, right? So Dave, I ran into you everywhere. You ran into my owner at 5 o'clock in the morning. That freaked him out, by the way. Because he works over by us. But I just want to introduce Safety Dave. He's got more certifications, more experience. We're using his bids on our job now. So we have to, sometimes we'll say, you know, site-specific safety plan. We got a budget for that. We got a budget for daily safety reports, weekly toolbox talks, right? We got a budget for all those. Dave can cover all those. And one of the really cool things he told me about was you can do litigation, expert witness, things like that nature. But I think I'm gonna leave it at that. So
I'm gonna let you keep going.
I'm bragging on you, man. I believe in you.
Good.
I've had more good things about you, Dave, and that's from everybody. So
Cool.
without further ado, I'm going to introduce Safety Dave, Dave Redland, your speaker for today.
Thank you so much. Grab one of those handouts here. You know what I'm up there.
Okay. Thank you. Great.
So with that introduction, I don't think I'm going to need this microphone, so I like to work the floor a little bit. But yeah, my formal beginning is my formal introduction. I've got to brag a little bit more. The picture on the right there was 5 years ago at the International Builder Show where they gave me the Safety Professional of the Year award, and that's in the entire nation. Last year is the picture on the left, and I got the Safety Champion of the Year in the entire nation. Oh, that's great. And if I didn't tell you about it, you wouldn't know, right? And I won't get any advertising dollars out of it if I don't, because I had to fly out there. They didn't pay to fly me out there and get that award, so that's about $5,000 worth of awards right there. Anyway, but and I'm not a Vegas kind of guy. I don't do any of the stuff Vegas is known for. So this last trip, I paid the cab guy to drive me around looking at construction sites, which that was fun for me, by the way. Raider Stadium was awesome. They got a lot of stuff going on out there again. It's good to see. Here's my crew, down to 6 guys. I had up to 13 last year, but you know how construction is. When the projects are done, they don't need the safety guy anymore. So, but no, this is my crew right now. That's on a job down on the Southwest Boulevard. You can see all the heavy equipment working down there. That's a Corps of Engineer project where we're full-time safety for them. Safety doesn't cost, it actually pays. You've probably heard that before in some slogan or somewhere down the road. And believe it or not, if you have a good safety program, I did see a couple companies in here that they got a great safety culture, so I'm preaching to the choir there. But obviously, you can reduce your accidents and your downtime. Right now, employees are pretty valuable. You don't want to get somebody hurt and be out a valuable employee, and the associated downtime with that. Maybe you have to bring a newbie on and get them trained, get them up to speed. So let's not have the accidents in the first place. Good safety program, good safety culture will keep your EMR as low as possible to help you qualify for bidding opportunities. What I mean with that is, does everybody know what an EMR is? It's Experience Modification Rate. It's what the workers' compensation company determines how much they're going to charge your company for workers' compensation insurance. Experience, it could be 6 stitches in a hand, or it could be a back strain, require surgery, ankle strain, whatever it might be. The more cost associated with that injury, of course, the higher the experience rate is, and cost you, and it'll go up. It won't go up for 1 year, no insurance at all. It'll go up for 3 years. And that rate, when you first start out, starts at a 1.0. Okay, how to equate that is, let's just say how many employees you got. I don't know, so I don't know what you're paying. But let's just say you're paying $100,000 a year for workers' compensation insurance. If your EMR rate is a 1.0, you're going to pay $100,000. Okay. If you don't have accidents for a period of about 2 or 3 years, that'll continually to go down. We'll just say 0.74 of them. That's a good EMR, by the way. A 0.74 means you're not going to pay $100,000 anymore. You're going to pay $74,000 for that same amount of insurance. So you can see how not having accidents is going to get you a reduction in insurance rates. And if you have accidents, that EMR goes up, it'll go like 1.2, 1.4, whatever that might be. Well, there again, you're gonna be paying $140,000 for the same amount of insurance you used to pay $100,000 for. So, and that's for 3 years, by the way, it'll slowly taper off. They're gonna get their money back one way or the other, so if you reduce those accidents, eliminate them, is the best thing for you. That EMR is also used in a lot of pre-bid opportunities. Have you seen some of these pre-bid questionnaires you have to do to get work? And they ask what your EMR is. And it has to be a certified letter from your insurance agent, not just some number you throw at them. That way they know it's truthful. They may ask for your EMR rate for the past 3 years, or 5 even. So that EMR rate is pretty valuable to keep it down. Because once it starts going up, getting out of control, it's hard to get to turn back around. It'll take a couple of years. Several companies have hired me to help do that. And they're like, we'll give you 1 year. Well, you can't do it in 1 year. Anybody who knows that. But we kept them happy enough to keep us on until we did start seeing the benefits of it going down. And no, you can't hire any safety guy in town and magically turn your EMR around, quit having accidents. I wish I could. I'd like to wave that wand. But it takes a lot of training programs in place, monitoring the job sites, all that goes along with the safety program, and encouraging your workers to work safe and explain this kind of stuff to them so they realize the importance of a good safety record and culture. Okay? Reduced insurance premiums, already told you that. If you got a good safety program, you're going to get the lowest amount of insurance they have to pay for workers' comp anyways. And most business owners, I don't know how much you know about that, they have to have workers' comp, they have to have liability. Some of them have company vehicles, now you got a fleet policy. That's a lot of insurance dollars every year they gotta pay out. It's hard to stay competitive if you have bad drivers and if you have bad workers and you hit a lot of utility lines or something like that. That's what liability insurance covers. Your insurance rates can crawl fast, real fast. So when you have a good safety culture, it helps keep all those insurances together. Okay? Oh, by the way, if you got a good safety culture and you're following your program, you won't have as many OSHA citations and the associated fines with those. Again, when you're bidding work, they'll ask you what your safety or OSHA record is, and they can look it up. OSHA.gov, it's a very user-friendly website. You can look up any company in the country and see what kind of OSHA citations they've received over the last 5 years. So another reason to keep a good safety culture, you want to keep your record clean so you don't wind up on that website, first of all, or writing checks to OSHA. I don't like to see anybody do that. I love OSHA, work with them a lot, believe in their purpose. I don't want to give them any money. Okay? So, also, by the way, with all that, reduce lawsuits. Obviously, if you've got accidents happening, while that worker's laid off or on workers' comp, he sees the Brown recruitment commercials, and the next thing you know, you're in a lawsuit. And it's not just your own employees, by the way, if you're a general contractor or even a subcontractor. If it's somebody that you've subcontracted to and they get hurt on your job site, a lot of times I'm seeing more of that, where that subcontractor's working workers' compensation insurance company files a lawsuit against the general contractor claiming unsafe job conditions or an area lift that they used of the GCs wasn't adequate. Claim all these false claims because what they're trying to do is get some of you to pay the cost. It's called subrogating the claim. And those workers' compensation insurance companies, they don't want to let go of their money. If they can get somebody else to help pay that cost, they will. So we got to have all that. All this will help go away, providing you a good safety program, good safety culture, and just live it and breathe it every day. Okay? Employee retention. If you got an unsafe company with not much of a safety culture, a good, valuable employee is going to get opportunities. You know, there's a lot of people scalping people's employees right now, and he's going to say, why would I stay working for this company who's got a terrible safety record when I can go to work for a company that has a good one? And much easier to get work, jobs are a lot cleaner, everything else that goes along with the safety culture. So as I call it, employee retention. Not to mention you're keeping employees safe and working versus on workers' comp. So now that's another form of employee retention, right? Employee recruitment. Again, the market's hot for the worker. They can kind of pick and choose where they want to work right now. They want to go to a company who's got a good safety culture, cares about their employees, good reputation in the business, and So it's kind of employee recruitment too, right? How's that for a sales pitch? Anyways, written safety programs. Again, I'm not sure what we have here for an audience. If you've got one, I know this young man here in front from J.E. Dunn, I know they got a great program. I have a copy of it to make up a site-specific safety program for one of the subcontractors on the hotel project down there. And I love companies like that do have thorough safety programs and require the same from their subs. But let's just say Eric wanted me to do this because that's how I met Eric. They were doing a big job out in Manhattan, Kansas, and that project out there, if anybody's familiar with it. And they require all this. Well, Hermes didn't have the level of safety programs that were required, so they hired me to do it for them. And I call that a first-class safety program. I refer to this as getting on an airplane. Safety programs can be in all shapes and sizes. If you're going to be doing work for a company like that project out there, it was a joint venture of Mortensen and McCarthy. If you know those two companies, that's a lot of safety. And so I call that first class. If you're doing USACE, that's U.S. Army Corps of Engineer projects, a lot of power plants, petrochemical industry, I call them top tier contractors, the top 20 or 30 in the nation, or railroads. They all are, and some others. I can't list them all in a PowerPoint. But those are the big guys. I call them the big guys. They want a good, thorough safety program from all the subcontractors on their site. Okay? So for me to develop one, it's quite a range depending on your scope of work and everything else. I just wanted to throw something out there, $2,400 to $3,200 for something like that. And that's what I would charge other consultants. I don't know what they charge, okay? But, and I gave a handout with other sources for you to use. There's the Kansas Department of Labor. That's your tax dollars at work. They're there to help you for free. I don't know that they can do a program like that, but I'm giving you some sources to pick from. Missouri Department of Labor is the other one, on the Missouri side, of course. OSHA's got some great information. And of course, safety consultants in the yellow pages, if anybody uses the yellow pages anymore. But I don't know what everybody else charges. That's the broad spectrum that I charge, okay? So that's for the top tier safety program. Well, then I call it the business class. Like if you're getting on an airplane, don't need first class, I'm gonna sit in the business class though, okay? And this is for general contractors or large subcontractors or specialty trades perhaps that need a little bit more oomph than just a regular everyday one. Again, $1,800 to $2,200 roughly. I'm trying to give you numbers to plug into your bid for some of these projects, by the way, is what Eric wanted me to present. So, and then the bare bones program, it's not bare bones, it's OSHA compliant, and I think it's still good and usable. There's a lot of safety programs that'll bury you in pages versus give you information that your employees might actually even use. I'm very, very cognizant of that. And I try to give something that you'll actually use, not sit on a shelf and collect dust, So, but the coach class, we didn't need first class or business class. Coach class safety program, roughly $1,200 to $1,600. That's for the smaller GCs or subcontractors, etc. Okay? Now that's just kind of a broad spectrum there. Safety programs pre-qualification. How many people have heard of any of these organizations? Browse, Avita, ISN Network, or PICS. They are third-party qualifiers. You submit your safety programs to them, and they approve them, yay or nay, to work on certain projects. It really all started in the petrochemical business. So if you're doing any work with oil and gas industries, petrochemical, pharmaceutical, they require these people. They pay them to audit your programs, but you got to pay them to do it. It's kind of a money grab. I'll be the first to admit. I wish I'd have thought of it. But you ballpark, you spend about $1,000 to $2,000 just to pay them, and then you have to submit the programs to them. So you got to pay someone usually to do that, unless you're really good and want to put up with a lot of resubmittals and resubmittals and resubmittals. That's why I say add $2,200 to $3,200 to get any one of these certifications behind your safety program. That'll be why it's such a broad range. It's contingent on the customer. Let's say, Phillips Petroleum, they'll have a list of things they expect of you guys to have, regardless of your scope of work, by the way. I've done some of these for very small electrical contractors, and this is the funny part. Small electrical contractor hires me to do a coach class safety program for them, okay? They send it to one of these organizations and say, then they get pissed at me because it didn't go through. Oh, they sent it back with all kinds of deficiencies, Dave. What'd you sell us? Well, when I sold them the coach class safety programs, because they were doing residential, single-family residential houses. Okay, now these guys, they want to see H2S gas programs, all this stuff you'll never encounter in single family, right? So I said, well, that's going to be another $2,200. And they said, what? And so, by the way, it can take 30 to 60 days to get you through this process. And that's on the speedy side, by the way. But anyways, it's a pain in the rear, but it is good once you get through it, okay? And once you get through it, now you get to have one of those stamps on your advertising materials, Facebook, whatever. You can brag that you're ISO Net World rated or AVITA approved, whatever it might be. Okay, now you got something to market your safety program to get more work. Make sense? Again, share that information with your insurance broker to where he can hopefully get you best available rates, or best in class rates that you can call it, in your insurance. A little bit of a pain in the rear, I'll admit. Go and buy it. Every year you have to send another $1,000 check to stay a member. And from time to time they'll ask you to submit a new program like a confined space program if you never had one, or whatever it might be. And that's not a problem, but and quarterly you have to send them how many man hours you worked with accidents. You're supposed to keep track of that anyways on a yearly basis for OSHA on your 300 logs, but these guys want to see it every quarter. That's the only difference. A little bit of a maintenance thing, nothing, of course, that a safety professional couldn't do for you, but it comes with a little bit of extra work to stay certified through that, okay? And if you start having accidents, by the way, they'll downgrade your rating a little bit. I've never seen anybody disqualified, but they do show that to all the customers that they have, what you're rated at, how many accidents you've had, blah, blah, blah. Because that's what it's all about, really. Am I losing anybody? But there's a lot of different types of safety programs out there and different costs associated with them when you're bidding work. If you overlook some of this stuff, like Eric, when they bid the NBAP job, they bid truckloads of trees and truckloads of shrubs and truckloads of mulch, all that. They didn't account for any of the safety. So they took a little bit in the shorts, and I think they got a little extra from them somehow. But most people, when you bid a job, you got to read the specs very clear to make sure any of this stuff is required to work on that site, especially when it comes to one of these certifications, okay? Now, there's a lot of costs right there. If you don't want to write them down, shoot me an email and I can send them to you, or you may already be familiar. Some jobs, if they're public funded in Missouri, you're supposed to have everybody 10-hour training. I think it's a good deal anyways. But that can result in any range from $89 online to in-person, $150 to $175 here in the Kansas City area. Okay, depending on class size and everything else. OSHA 30-hour, that's always good for management. In Nevada, you have to have anybody in management, foreman or superintendent, 30-hour training. That can range from $195 online to $295 to $350 in this market for in-person training. And they usually require a minimum of 10 people all the time to make the class more viable. Healthcare contractors, you're going to be working in hospitals, occupied hospitals anyways. That's a whole other training. There's a couple different organizations that do it. I don't, by the way, but this is what I know some of the costs, $195 to $295 or even $350 per person, right?
Sorry, the healthcare, is that the 8%?
That's ASHI does it, and a couple other organizations, but Edgar is right, that's part of it. Infection control and risk assessment. Big deal when you're working in occupied medical facilities. It's great training if you're in that business, okay? But a lot of times the training isn't local, so you got to travel. So there's some travel costs associated with that, so I kind of plug that in. but it is great training, looks good on your credentials when you're bidding that kind of work. Any of the construction, it's good to have first aid, CPR, automatic electronic defibrillators, and bloodborne pathogen training, all in one course, $120 to $175 per person, by the way. And oh, by the way, that's only good for 2 years. So every 2 years, you got to put your people through that if you're in certain construction markets that require it. It is good training, very valuable. I've seen it save 3 lives in the last couple of years on construction sites, 2 heart attacks and 1 electrocution. So the aging workforce that we have, good training, okay? Forklift operator, just a quick ballpark figure right there, that's every 3 years. They have to be re-upped every 3 years. And on, aerial lift, scissor lift, silica, these are just kind of the area, in this area for training. HAZCOM, people don't do enough of that, that's why it's the number 3 citation OSHA writes. Sit down and do some training. A lot of this you can do yourself if you're schooled in it at all. Oops, sorry about that. Number 1 thing I should have done. Not a real good presenter now anyway. Fall protection. If you're doing any government work, Corps of Engineer work, they require you to have what's called ANSI fall protection training, which is a 3-day course for the workers. It can be 5 days for the trainer. So that can get real expensive. A lot of people don't know that when they get into government contracting. And oh, by the way, that's 3 days those employees are going to sit in school. And if you want to have somebody qualified to train it, that's a week. So that's expensive. And again, some of that training's out of town. So now start talking some real money. But if you're doing core work, okay, it's very valuable. And I love Corps of Engineer work. It does have a lot of the paperwork involved, but once you get going, it's not bad at all. Excavation and trenching training, very valuable, $150 to $295, depending on where you go and how many people you have. Okay? That's just a ballpark. That's not all the training that you need to be in construction. I just wanted to give you a ballpark for including in your bids. Okay? If you're on an owner-controlled insurance program, otherwise known as OSIP, or a contractor-controlled insurance program, or a CSIP, they require on-site full-time qualified safety professional, depending on their criteria. McCarthy NBAF project, the McCarthy Mortensen NBAF project, it was, I think it was 25 employees. If you got 25 employees on site, you got a full-time guy. Well, they didn't tell you this, or if they did, I don't see the bid documents. Very, very rare. But we did work out there for companies with fewer than 25 employees because they had some safety snafus, screws. And G said, you get a full-time safety guy out here, contract. So that's when we came to work. That's me and 2 of my guys on the Missouri Stadium expansion project out in Columbia. There's various subcontractors on there that needed us. So at one time we had 3 people out there. 2 people almost all the time. So, and my cost for that depends on, again, the scope of work, where the project is, and blah, blah, blah. But 55 to 85 per hour, plus overtime and double time on Sundays and holidays, double time. Overtime usually after 40, okay? And of course, if the project's out of Kansas City, there's per diem involved. We try to keep our costs down best we can, but with all the insurances everybody has to have, and we have to jump through quite a few hoops too, that's kind of the cost we need, okay? I'm just giving you a ballpark again, should you ever need it. We were down on the J. Dunn Convention Center Hotel, had a guy down there for like 1 year and 2 months actually. Good project. We were able to stay at that lower end right there with no travel cost, of course, because we're local. So it worked out being a very good project. I love getting on those kinds of projects because the safety is first class. Site-specific safety costs that you might not remember or have in your bid, probably should, is bend and flex. You get on the airport project, you're going to do 15 minutes of bend and flex in the morning. You get on the McCarthy wastewater treatment plant in Leawood with the tower crane sticking up, you're going to do 15 minutes of bend and flex. Well, we all know 15 minutes, it takes that long to walk to the bend and flex area and then to walk back and get to work. So you're probably talking half an hour you should probably put in your bid every day for however many employees you got. And then what that labor cost is.
What's the point?
What's that?
What's the point of bend and flex?
Oh, it really is a good tool. Gets your body warmed up for the day's work. There's been all kinds of studies done when you do all these maneuvers every morning. Your body, your blood flow starts getting going, your oxygen levels get built up. You just don't go out there and tear into work and wind up having stranger sprains or worse, heart attacks. It's most of the big sites all do it. The Mortonsons, the Carthy's, it's done. I don't even know if they. Of course, the airport project. It really is good. When I'm out there,
What was it? I don't know if I heard it right, but was there a prereq for the bend and flex? You said a certain manpower or?
it depends. Okay, don't quote me on
Right.
this. It's in the bid specs usually. If not, you'd ask somebody. If it's one of the big projects I talked about, it might be in the bid spec someplace where it says mandatory bend and flex. It might not say 15 minutes, but it's usually 15 minutes. But I say half an hour by the time you actually get to work every day. Because I've had this. I've got clients that they're out in Manhattan on a Mortenson Corps of Engineer job. Every day of morning, that's 15 people times 30 times union scale electricians, whatever it is, you know. It is real money, but you're going to do that going in, right? You can't get away from it. You're going to do it regardless. But I want to make sure you don't miss that cost, okay? But yeah, it is a great program. I encourage people to do it on their own at their own companies, so you just get used to it. Your bodies are warmed up every morning. You see the Kansas City Chiefs do it, and they're in a lot better shape than we are. You see the Kansas City Royals do it. Yeah, they're still a good team. They're a lot better shape than we are. That's why they do it too. Okay. Now I'm here selling Beneflex, but it's a great program. Oh, by the way, that's the Raiders Stadium project. Has anybody seen some of the videos they're doing out there?
Yeah.
I encourage you. That's great, isn't it? Mike Rowe is the commentator, and they've got like 9 or 10 of them so far, and it's through the whole construction process. And it's really, I think it's really good, educational wise and everything. But anyways, another site-specific safety cost you might not remember. There's a weekly safety meeting at some of these big projects. They call them safety stand-downs, whatever it might be. And I just put another half an hour a week in for something like that. So a half an hour at how many personnel you're going to have on site and they're going scale. And that way you don't miss that cost either. And now I know what somebody's going to say, because I get it from other clients. If I put all that in my bid, I won't get the job. Somebody who doesn't put it in their job will get the job. I can't control that. But you should go in knowing what it's going to cost you to do these jobs. That's the biggest thing that Corps of Engineer contractors, when they get their first gig, they bid it like they're doing a residential development. Then they go into a Corps job, have to jump through all these hoops, and they lose money. They'll never do Corps work again. Well, I'm trying to forewarn everybody when you get on certain jobs, there's certain criteria to meet. Okay? That's where safety gets a bad name sometimes. Okay? Hard hats and safety glasses and all the PPE that goes along any construction site is going to be a cost. Okay? It's very well worth it, of course, because it's going to keep your workers safe, plus it's going to make you look professional, everything that goes with it. But they're coming up with these new hard hats. They look more like helmets. They got the chin strap right. Okay, they're up at the airport project. I thought they were going to make it mandatory for everybody on that site to wear them. I think what happened is Kansas City is very good at manipulating out-of-town contractors into not doing things. When they built the Sprint Center, if you remember right, they couldn't get anybody to bid the first bid package, which was excavation, because they required all the stuff that we're talking about. It was a Mortenson job, and Kansas City wasn't ready for it back then. And now it's common. It's common on every job. But back then, nobody wanted to bid, even the first bid package, because that's what was required. And I think they backed off they're like $140 hard hats. They're great hard hats. You're going to see more and more of them come. Everybody asks me, is OSHA going to make it mandatory? It takes OSHA, it took them 30 years to make the rules they got in place now. Actually more than that, 40. And yeah, anyway, actually 50. Jesus, I'm getting old. But it takes OSHA forever to make a regulation. All they care is you have an ANSI approved hard hat on. But not project specific. Clark's mandatory for every employee of Clark. I think last I heard done, have they gone 100%?
No, not 100%, but like we got a project in Omaha,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, you know, the flattest place on earth, and you're up 80 feet in the air, and if you're on the roof, you have to have those, because there's such a risk that your hard hat will blow off if there isn't anything else.
I knew you guys were experimenting, maybe going to them.
We probably will in the future, but right now, so.
And I'll be honest, I just bought my crew the new hard hats that was in that last picture, and they were $140, but they aren't cast. I like to have a brim. Gives you more shade protection, more falling object protection. We're on a lot of multi-family, multi-story buildings that stuff comes flying off. I want my nose and the back of the neck protected from stuff falling, whereas these have very little falling object protection, except the actual head. It will stay on when you slip, trip, or fall, which is the big thing. So that's why they're, one of the reasons they're becoming popular. They'll stay on your head, because 9 times out of 10, you just slip or falling off a roof, and our heads go off. So, but there's a lot of pros and cons. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention, what's coming out in the business. But a lot of the job sites that we talked about, site-specific, the Doesnt sites, the Mortensons, the McCarthy's, cut-resistant gloves, mandatory. The cut-resistant glove, usually cut-3 resistance, the minimum. They can get expensive, okay? Especially you got guys that are, you know, they're working in concrete all day. It's going to wear the heck out of them gloves. You're going to go through a lot of gloves. So you kind of got to get a feel how many people, how many gloves you're going to go through, and kind of include that in your expenses. And I don't know anything about money. Obviously, I'm still working at my age. But is this overhead issue, or what is it? How that cost gets spread out? But I just want to bring it to your attention because I get so many people clocking in. I didn't know I had to buy a $3 pair of gloves for everybody, you know, or a $140 hard hat. But PPE in general costs money, and then to keep it functional, you got hard-working concrete guys. They're going to get concrete all over yellow vests, and you buy a vest as well. So ladders, again, I call them the big boys. They're going to a ladders last program. They want you to use aerial lifts or scissor lifts or scaffolding versus ladders. Why is that? Nobody realizes it, but 42% of all workers' compensation claims in construction are ladder related. People falling off them, they miss that bottom step. They think they're on the bottom step, and they go to jump, and they're not. Boom. Now, the ladder manufacturers are coming up with some better ladders too. Warning devices that go off when you step on the bottom step. They'll make a sound so you know you're on the bottom step. They're getting better at making ladders. But here's what's required on a lot of them, called a podium deck ladder. So you got a nice deck to stand on. You're a lot more comfortable. That's got to be a lot more comfortable for your trades that are always working above their heads. Okay. Plus, it's got a fall protection railing system around it. That's required on, again, a lot of the big boy sites. You can't bring a standard step ladder on their site. Do they cost more? Of course so. Unfortunately, all this stuff costs more. Duty ratings. Most of the big boys, again, have a minimum 300-pound duty rating ladder. So don't buy the 250 ones, you're wasting your money. And construction worker with a full belt of tools, you probably could have 300 pound anyways. Okay, just something to be on the lookout. I don't know if it's in the bid specs or not. Probably buried in there someplace, you know. Working near railroad tracks. There's all kinds of different costs associated with that. If you're going to be within 25 feet of a active railroad track line, you have to have E-rail safety for all your employees. Again, I don't know the exact cost of some of this stuff, but it's time to have a guy in front of a computer, and then I think there is a fee associated with it. Okay. If you're going to be within 10 feet of active railroad tracks with heavy equipment, you've got to have a spotter. These are usually retired railroad personnel. They sit in their pickup truck and they communicate with the rail. They know how many trains are coming, when they're coming, and they tell you when you can't work. Sometimes they tell you can't. How do you factor that in? How much time a train comes by, when they come by. But and you got to pay that guy. And I'm not sure what they get paid, but I think it's pretty good. But just things to remember when you're bidding certain jobs. And I can't cover them all in one session. Stuff to be on the lookout. Make sense? Now, on the back side of this handout, if you haven't already looked at it, I think it's a good little checklist, and not, all of it's not just safety, but a supply checklist that you could probably use on every job. How many of this, how many of that you need to start a project. And what the costs are of that, I do not know. We'll put a plug in for HD White Cap Supply. They're not the cheapest, they're not the most expensive, but they do a great job of customer service and helping you out whenever you need it. And they do a lot for our industry in training, fall stand-downs. They come out and buy people lunches and put on fall stand-downs for everybody. They do a bang-up job for our industry. That's why I'm plugging them. I don't get any commissions or anything like that. But, I think that's a good checklist. That's why I gave it to you. Maybe not at your level, but pass it on down to the superintendents or the foremen, or whoever might be in your company that need to man the job with needed supplies. Okay? And a lot of that is cost items too. People don't think about fencing, security fencing, privacy screens if you need it, if it's required. Signage on those fences. It's generally every 300 feet you need a sign that says danger construction area, keep out. People say, well, that's not an OSHA requirement. No, but usually your liability insurance carrier or your builder's risk carrier, they're going to require this stuff. And it's too late when they come out and write you up for it and raise your rates because you didn't have it. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of different avenues to a safety program that can help you with insurance carriers, insurance rates, and then also marketing. You know, tell them you've got a great program, buddy, what your EMR is, of course, if it's good, and brag it up, live it, make it a good culture, like the big boys do. That's how you get that culture going, and everybody knows when you're on their side what they're getting as far as a safety program. Make sense? Anybody have any questions? I went kind of fast through it. I pride myself in not taking up people's time, but yet getting them hopefully good information. I don't know if this helped at all in your jobs. I hope so. No questions at all?
OSHA 10, OSHA 30, is that, how long is that program? I can't remember. Once you've been OSHA 10 certified.
Believe it or not, never expires. You'll flip the card over and the fine print says never expires. Is it a good idea to have a refresher every now and then? Oh yeah. I like what Nevada has done after all the fatalities they had in the casino boom of 10 years ago, wherever it was. They require everybody on a construction site to have minimum 10. If you're a foreman or superintendent, project manager, you've got to have 30. Oh, and by the way, every 5 years has to be refreshed, half of what you got. I think that's reasonable. Every 5 years for you to go back for half of what you're carrying and keep you refreshed on the regulations of what you forgot, because you will forget. But I think I wish that's the way it would go, but again, OSHA takes forever to pass anything, so I don't foresee it. Not in our lifetime or my lifetime, okay? Good question though. Anything else? Good.
Kind of touched on it a little bit, but
Sure.
In regards to like abatement or anything like that, what is like hazardous material abatement?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we price it up and estimate it, we do it, you know, either by the trade and the time it takes them, or like unit raised. What above and beyond costs are we not capturing that you've seen out of the job? Because that's always a tough.
Wide open, isn't it?
Abatement is such a tough thing to capture.
Yep.
Any recommendations on that?
Bit heavy, because you know they're gonna miss stuff. They always do. First of all, whoever did the abatement or the environmental assessment of the project says there's X linear feet of asbestos piping.
Exactly.
They forgot the floor tile. That's one example. It's always more than what they ever put in their assessment, and additional materials are discovered, whether it be ceiling tiles, floor tiles, additional piping discovered in a room they never accessed. So yeah, abatement always goes over budget, doesn't it?
It feels like it does.
I don't, come on in. But,
Is there any of the GCs, like any of this that, I mean, I'm trying to bring security as much as possible, but, yeah.
If you're the GC and you need a number that the sub won't go over, I just double it perhaps. I don't know. Depends on the size of the project again, age of the project and everything else. Yeah, when it comes to hazmat abatement, and then sometimes you didn't know, but now all of a sudden you got lead face paint you do have to deal with. Well, this was a commercial building. No, but it's gonna be an apartment complex or something. Somebody twists the rules around on you. I've seen it go the other way too, where people thought it was gonna be regulated lead-based paint abatement, and it wasn't. But it's a good idea to follow the requirements anyway. But that's a good question. Thanks for asking. I wish I could answer it better. But, I just put a lot of contingency money in there, so you got it. But and you never know. Every now and then you get a good contractor, and if not as much. Not very often though, right?
Yeah.
No, good question.
Nice.
Same thing with fluorescent light bulbs too. Might be a ton of them you didn't count on disposing of properly.
Yeah, that's a separate disposal fee. One of them, my first big one time, we were rebulbing the whole thing.
Yep. Be on the lookout that somebody's not illegally disposing of them. Demo contractors have been known to do that. You know, you're the ones going to jail right beside them. So, all right.
I had a,
Very true.
just to clarify, you were going over your safety programs that you worked on for companies, and you gave us like a baseline to that. Just to clarify, you said tier 1, business class, small, so is that for the company or for the project?
Good question. What I can do for that right there is a project-specific safety program.
So if they got awarded something, but they don't have the stuff together, they can call you.
Right. That's something you could take to the NMAP project like I did for Eric. But you know what? 9 times out of 10, that same program you want to take to another project is very simple to change. The site-specific information. If you don't want to do it, I'd probably charge like $500 to customize it for your next project or something. Once you got the bare basics in, the change the site-specific stuff's not always that hard. I should have specified that a little better. Okay. But yeah, it seems like everybody's wanting a site-specific safety program, and they don't want every material safety data sheet because they expired 5 years ago, by the way. They want safety data sheets, and just the ones you're bringing on. They don't want everyone in God's creation brought up. Makes sense. Good feedback. Thank you. Anything else? Anything you'd like to see in the future of one of these estimating academies regarding safety? That's all.
More abatement. More abatement.
More on abatement?
Yeah, that is a-
Well, hey, I'll do some research, try to get some better information for it.
Or like pre and post search. I think industrial hygienists will do like they will do evaluation and then they'll do like a post search, kind of some numbers on that as well. I know that varies, but that's kind of handy to have. So that we have a number we'll kind of go with, and if it's bigger, we'll use the multipliers.
So the actual cost for the third-party
This
monitoring
is great.
of abatement and stuff.
If there's a big contract, we know we could, if they have a sub or something that's a train wreck, we could say, they're gonna have to probably create a safety program to do this job safely or something.
And sometimes a lot of this does seem like a lot, especially for every subcontractor. But at least you're bringing them up to speed, because are we all GCs in here? Everybody a GC or?
Owner
Okay. But you subcontract a lot of your work?
to the GCs.
Okay. Yes, you're a subcontractor, right? It's just great to get everybody on the same playing field, heading for safety, because one subcontractor is not on board can cause everybody on that side of grief when OSHA stuff, right? Or when somebody gets hurt, OSHA has to come investigate. So I just get everybody on the same page, with good programs in place. Once they're in place, they're good to follow, keep going. Can't preach it. It'll help bring down the accident rates in our industry. Hopefully bring down the insurance costs there. Because right now you can have the safest company in the world, but because you're in construction, you're paying more, right? So I have a dream of bringing that all down, but
What's the highest EMR you see?
ones that I successfully reduced, I've seen a 1.7 brought down, it took 5 years, down to 0.74. And they were a big contractor that equated to about $250,000 a year in savings. So, yeah, it works, but it takes a while. I had another contractor that's about the same numbers, or just dropped a little 1.0, but he's the one that wanted to see it in a year. And now 4 years later, he's seeing it. The same insurance companies that were canceling him are begging for his business. So it does work. It takes time. It takes time to turn people's attitudes and cultures around. Some of the industries I'm in, I've seen it. They're accident-prone industries. Continually walking on uneven ground, continually bending, a lot of muscle strains and sprains. That's where the bending flex does come in. But yeah, great dialogue. Appreciate you guys having time with me today. We're back to, I forgot to get the slide, the most important one. But guys, I really appreciate your time today. I'm not going to take up any more unless you want me to. I'll stay here as long as you want. Talk to you. Thank you.